Real stories of rising through hardships, raw truths around life and parenting. What does the universe have in store for us? Self-care to your core. We shine best in our authenticity. Welcome to Rise and Shine with the Mama Jack. Hi everybody, and welcome to Rise and Shine with the Mama Jack. So today's episode, I am talking about my big spiritual awakening. A lot of people have many spiritual awakenings, which I learned after my big one, that they had been tapping, knocking for quite a while, and I just wasn't able to be open enough to understand what was happening. But this is the story of the big one. So if you don't know the story of my postpartum depression and my mental breakdown, you can go back and listen to those. They're on season 1. I went through the lowest low I've had in my life. A lot of people would call it dark night of the soul, which is when you really don't see anything but the bad, the awful. How can my life ever get better? It won't get better. I always say you're 1 foot in the grave whenever you're in these moments. It's the moments that completely shatter you. Your tower moments that aren't just tower moments. They rip you apart inside and outside. It's like your whole outer world and inner world come crashing down on itself. And I had that mental breakdown, and, I couldn't speak. I couldn't be around my kids. I ended up scheduling this mother's retreat with a good friend of mine. Her name is Nicole, and I'll put her link in my show notes because her retreat kind of booted me into this. But I wasn't going to go because, I had just gone through a mental breakdown. I was very shaky and didn't know if I could be around people. And I was torn. I was torn up. They had put me on meds, so I was kind of just like, I went from being numb and having anxiety in me all the time to just being numb from the meds. So it was a really weird period of time, and I actually talked to my psychologist and psychiatrist about it, and I was like, should I go? Because I had planned it like 6 months prior, and, it just so happened to be like a week and a half after this mental breakdown, or a week after the mental breakdown. And they were like, absolutely go. This is not your safe place being at home right now. You need to get out, which it's not your safe place being at home. Like, that should be the one place, right? So I packed my bags and I got on a plane and I went to this retreat that was it was by Virginia Beach on the coast. It was beautiful. And I was there with a bunch of women that I had known through an app called Peanut. We were friends on Peanut and talked every day, and it was awesome getting to meet them in real person. It was like the second I walked through the door, I kind of felt a little bit different. I felt safe. I felt more relaxed. It was like I was out of my element that was holding me back so much. And not holding me back, breaking me down. I didn't know how to be a mom at that point anymore. I didn't know how to be me at that point anymore. I didn't know who I was at all at this point. I was really just this shell of a person that had somewhat of a personality come out sometime, but was that me or was that, I don't know. It was really confusing and a really weird time. And so the first day we get there, and it was my birthday. So they had a cake for me and they sang me happy birthday. It was beautiful. But the next day, I'm an early riser normally. I'm like the 5 o'clock riser. And when I travel, I wake up even earlier, no matter what time I go to bed. But I was still going to bed early because I was fresh on meds. So they told me take meds at night. It would knock me out. I'd be out within 5-10 minutes. So woke up like 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun rose. And I was like, you know what? I'm at the beach. Like, I'm going to grab a blanket and go sit at the beach and just stare at the sunrise with a cup of coffee. And that's the original Mama Jack picture, which I'll probably use as the art for this one because that's where this whole thing started. And I remember sitting on the beach and just asking myself, like, Jackie, where do we go from here? Like, where do we go from here? I felt so hopeless. I felt so out of control. I felt so lost, like very lost. I've always had these moments in my life where I have a second of like, who am I? What am I doing here? Like, it's almost like an out of body experience. And I was feeling that like for, weeks at a time at this point. I think some people call it disassociation or there's a word for it, but I didn't realize that wasn't normal and that was a trauma response. But we've gotten into that in other episodes. We'll get into it in other episodes if you want. But as I'm sitting there on the beach, just sitting by the ocean, and I'm finally like, okay, Jack, let's just close our eyes and breathe. Because I was a meditator. I meditated. I've known how to meditate. Oh my God. We'll get into that after the story. But I've known how to meditate for quite a while. And it was a saving grace for my PTSD. So I was like, let's go back to these. I have this medication that's calming me down now. Why don't we try meditating again? And so I closed my eyes and just let the ocean breeze hit me and, listen to the water. And this feeling I got inside of me, this warmth, was something I've never felt before. And I opened my eyes and I'm still just staring, and I see this like ring in the sky. It looked like iridescent glitter. And I was like, I'm hallucinating. Like, they have me on too many meds. What the hell is happening? And then it like dissipated. And I'm like, okay, that was really weird. Is that because I just had my eyes closed and I opened, looking for all the logical reasons on why this would happen. And then another one appeared, and it was literally like it was drawing itself in the sky, a perfect circle, iridescent, and like sparkly. That's how I can describe it, as iridescent and sparkly. And I was like, that's number 2. So this is a little strange. What is going on? And I was like, it's a reflection from the sun. The sun wasn't up yet. The sun wasn't up yet. So it wasn't like I stared into the sun and saw these spots. They were there. And I was like, okay, so we're just going to take that for what it was. I really didn't mention it to everybody because I thought they would think I was batshit crazy. And I was just going with the flow at that point. I actually had a meditation that I would go to bed to every night. It was just a sleep one, nothing spiritual, just relaxing your body into sleep. I used to listen to the Calm app, and they have a bunch of sleep meditations, and that's how I was kind of relaxing myself before bed. I was still pumping at this time. Like, I had to, I had stopped giving my daughter milk because of the meds, but I had to keep pumping because you can't just stop, right? So I went to bed that night, woke up the next day, and we had a circle. I'm trying to remember if this was day 1 or day 2. Okay, I'm sorry. Later in that day, later in the first day after I saw the rings, we had this circle. And you've heard me talk about it before. I'm going to talk about it again. Nicole asked us, she runs the retreats, what are 2 characteristics about yourself that you don't like, and how can we flip them to make them better? And I wrote down my anxiety and depression. And I was thinking of 80 other things I could write, but I just halted it at those like 2 generic, general terms. And she's like, does anybody need help? And I was like, me. I need help. I can't flip these around right now. Like, I'm literally going through a mental breakdown. I don't see the good in any of this. And she had oracle cards all lined up. And I actually have the deck now. It was these Rebecca Campbell's, and she's like, well, why don't you pick a card and maybe it'll have some inspiration. And at the time, I wasn't against spirituality. I think it's rad and cool, you know. I was open to a lot of different things. So I was like, what the hell? I'll pick a card. What am I going to lose? And this card came out, and it was the Priestess. And I'm actually going to find that card right now and show you and read it to you. I'm sure she's in here close because she's always close to me. Let's see. Aha. Okay. So this woman came out. And you've seen me post her on my Instagram if you follow me on Instagram. And it said, how are you being called to step up and lead? Again, that doesn't give me a lot to work with, right? But I went to the book. Most Oracle decks have books that you can read more into it. And in the book, it said, use your story to help others. Now, people had been when I was on Peanut, I used to run a room called Good Morning Mamas, and we would have, God, some days would be like 50 women in that room, and we would just talk and give advice and just love each other and not fight and just help each other through what we were going through. And people were like, you should do a podcast. You should. And I was like, on what? On what? And then finally, boom, it clicked. That's where the Mama Jack came, right? So I promised myself I would go home and I would start this podcast, and it would start out with my postpartum journey, which when you go back, you could hear it live. That was the beginning. The next day at the retreat, you had a choice where you could pay to get a reading done. And I wanted one, but I was like, again, take it with a grain of salt. I hadn't had amazing experiences with readers before, but give it a try. So I go into this reading and she's talking to me and she's like, you're creative with your hands. Now, I can't tell you how many people have told me, like, my hands, I create things with my hands. And I was a hairstylist, so I was like, yeah, I create things with my hands, yeah, duh. And she goes, no. You can do what I can do. You are a healer. You are a spiritual person. You're a starseed. And I'm hearing all these terms and I'm like, I had heard this and I was like, what the hell do I do with that? Like, oh my God. And then there was just that now. And she told me to start automatic writing. She was like, just start scribbling in a journal. Just start writing down whatever comes to your mind. And I was already journaling anyways because it was part of my therapy. Part of what my therapist recommended was journaling a lot of things. And every emotion that came up, you can go back, you can reflect on it. I still very much so believe in journaling. And another thing that happened on that retreat was we did a childhood meditation. And I'm not sure if I brought this up in another episode or not, but we brought a picture of ourselves. We were told to send Nicole a picture. So I'm thinking mine was me 3 years old holding up a fish. So I thought when we did this childhood meditation, that's who I would see. Nope. Clearly it was me in first grade. I have the picture. It's I'm in pink and white polka dots with a pink headband. And, I'm going through this mental breakdown and everything. And me and my psychologist are trying to figure out where did it start? You get to the root of the problem, which is a lot of spiritual stuff. With shadow work, you go to the root. When did it start? So my psychologist is actually a Reiki healer too, which I found out after I started admitting my spirituality to her. And it was rad because she was kind of having me do shadow work before I even knew what it was. And so I'm on my way home. These weird rings pop up, had this reading with this, psychic medium that was telling me I have a gift and I should hone in on it. And I'm a starseed and a healer. And, we're being called right now. And I was like, what the hell? On the way back, I had a call with my psychologist because my psychiatrist and psychologist were going to talk between each other to see if their notes compared and my diagnosis and all that stuff, right? So my psychologist is going through it. When's the earliest thing you remember? What do you remember? Well, my mother had a mental breakdown when I was 8 years old, which would have been when she was 38 years old. Interesting, because so I was like 37. What triggered me and my mental breakdown was my son getting the stomach flu. And when she had her mental breakdown, I always wanted to be with her. And I would either pretend like I was throwing up or make myself throw up to go home so I could be with her. Hence the correlation between like throw up, trauma from the past. And in that meditation, that little girl popping up and then putting two and two together, that was my first grade self. And that's who I saw. I was just like, whoa, this is like a lot, right? Like, this is beyond me. How the hell did she show up? Out of every age, that's who I needed to work on at the time. So here I am getting pushed to being a believer even more. So I started doing the letter writing to myself, the forgiveness, looking at my life. What do I need to dig up? What do I need to work on? Childhood traumas, working through, a major car accident I was in that gave me PTSD, trying to work through, throw up. Why do I not like throw up? This, that. I mean, it's so weird because my son had gotten sick before and I didn't freak out the way I freaked out that time. It was definitely compounded with everything else, for sure. Just starting to look stuff up, and I became curious. I joined some spiritual mom groups and started listening and asking questions, and shadow work was a big one, and I dove in. When I say I journaled for hours and hours, I never wanted to feel the way that I felt during my lowest ever again. Ever again. And it was almost like with the feeling on the beach, and then the card pull, and then the childhood meditation, and then the psychic telling me this. It was like, boop, boop, boop. Like my guides were slowly like pulling at me, right? And I started to meditate freely. Like I would, run through my chakras because I learned a little bit about the chakra system. So I would go through my chakras and then kind of just let my mind go. And I started to make a safe place for myself in my meditation. And I would go there and I would see who would come up. And it was one presence. It felt very familiar to me. And I was like, this is my older brother that passed away. He was only like 8 days old. And he would have been like, oh my God, like 8 years older than me or something like that. And I knew it. There wasn't oh, you're making this up. Oh, Jackie, you're going crazy. No, I knew this for sure. This was him. He was there with me. So like overwhelming, right? Especially after you just go through a mental breakdown, you're like, what the hell is going on here? So she also told me that my friend Tony, who had passed away, was with me a lot. And I was like, huh, okay, Tony, like he wants to hang out like the old times. Like we were good friends, like the year after I graduated high school, maybe my senior year of high school a little bit, and he ended up passing away years ago. I would listen to certain music in my car and that I used to listen. I used to be like a screamo emo girl that me and Tony would listen to, and I would physically feel his presence next to me. It was literally like how it felt back in the day. Like he was there in my car with me listening. And so it started to feed into it more and more. The shadow work was incredible for my healing journey, digging up those things from the past, finding the root of the problem, and slowly like healing from there. And healing is a ever-long process, right? We heal and we heal and we heal and we heal and we heal. Meditating more, I would start to see other things. There was a time, oh my God, where I was just grabbed and whipped up into like the stars, and it was this presence, and I couldn't put my finger on it, and it was this beautiful presence. And with the mentor at the time, we just like, she's like, God, it's giving Aphrodite vibes. And I looked up Aphrodite, and when I did, it was like my heart was like, and like, whenever you're a spiritual person, you do feel a lot in your heart and in your head. I feel mostly in my heart. Like, a lot of readings that come that I'm not like trying to do, or like that are unexpected, it'll literally feel like barn doors go and my heart is just open, and then I just get images in my head, right? So this was 2022 when this happened. So I'm like a year and a half in now. I've gone pretty quick through my journey with a strict regimen. I was meditating every day. I was journaling every day. I've read countless books already. I was listening to other people, putting what they said into practice. I was using my intuition. I already had my intuition. Once you become spiritual, you kind of start to look back at your life and you're like, okay, that might have been something. That might have been something. That might have been something. I remember when I was little, really little, at the first house I ever lived, I had to have been 3 years old. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and looking at my brother, because my bed was right beside his crib, and feeling something inside of me that didn't feel like me. I think that was something that I dealt with in my car accident, which you'll get that story October 8th. I'm giving you guys the car accident story. Insane. So cool. And a lot of people are going to be like, Jackie, you're so cuckoo. I don't care. It's my truth. But my car accident, during my car accident, before we wrecked, I felt somebody like put their arms around me and say, it's going to be okay. Just relax. It's going to be okay. And it almost felt like a motherly figure. I thought it was my grandmother for a long time. But after that was all said and done, I basically opened my eyes and the car was wrecking. This was before the car started to wreck, and I was in a tree. So like, it was, and you know, that whole thing, like, I was bleeding internally. The car was on fire. It was, you, if you listen to season 2, I tell that story. Go back to season 2 and listen to that story with my mom. So that was something else that I felt. There was one point where I was at a low in my 20s, and I remember having this dream. And you know how most dreams, like, sometimes you'll feel like you're falling and you'll jolt yourself awake. This dream felt like somebody grabbed me by my feet and ripped me into the sky. And I woke up and I was like, that was freaking weird, dude. Like, what the heck? So those are just a couple things that come to mind. And I'm sure if I sat here, I could think of more and more and more. But you start to see these little seeds that had been sprinkled your whole life. And as you meditate, you learn more about your life, and you learn more about yourself, and you learn about, you know, forgiveness. And for me, my spirituality is all about healing and understanding people and giving them the love they deserve from a non-judgmental place. If there's a message, helping them out with a message. If they want a reading, I do energy readings. Sometimes family members will pop in. It's very kind of random when that happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. Story with that, and this is also what I want to warn you of. So there are a lot of spiritual people. A lot of them seem very friendly, and a lot of them are very friendly and loving. But there are some, especially when you start your path, and for somebody like me, I went pretty quick. I think I've leveled out a little bit, possibly, we'll see. But people that I thought were true to me weren't as true to me as I thought. And at this point, I had been pretty in tune with meditating, talking to guides. I had seen different places My guides had taken me different places. They had given me certain messages that were super important to me and healing, and honestly, I believe good for other people to hear as well. And I got a reading from a mentor at the time, and the reading was like, you're going too fast. You need to slow down. And it didn't sit with me right. And I was just like, okay, and took it for what it was. And the next morning I meditated. And this was when Aphrodite was already kind of like in my space. And she's amazing to work with. But she took me to this place, and it was almost like a mini Akashic Records. If you don't know what that is, look it up. We can talk about it in an episode if you want. It's basically a book of past lives, right? And she like, the pages just like started spinning in this book. And this is through a meditation I'm having, right? Like, I just let my mind go, and it takes me where to places that I would never even think of. It's not like, oh, it's lunchtime, my stomach's hungry, I'm going to think of a sandwich. It literally, it's wild, the places that I go and the like entities that I've seen and worked with. So she takes me to this place, which at the time I thought was her place, but we'll go into detail about what it is later. I know I'm giving a lot of laters because it's a lot to dive into in one episode, but this book flips open and it's me as an angel. And she very firmly looked at me and said, you are on a different path than a lot of other people. And a lot of other people are going to try to slow you down. And we're taking you at a pace that you need to go at to be where you need to be to help the world in the way that you are here to help. So do not listen to what anybody has to say about how fast or slow you need to go. You go at your own pace. We put you here for a reason. You were an angel. So now I'm a Starseed Earth Angel. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, there had been some other things that had happened too. You will know the people that are meant to be your sisters forever. And they always say that saying, like, people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you can be very vulnerable when you're starting your spiritual journey. And I found out that a lot of people that I looked up to weren't actually being as kind behind my back. You already are putting yourself out there talking about these things, right? Because you feel crazy. Like, when you go through your spiritual awakening, you will literally feel like you're going insane sometimes. Like, especially like a Kundalini awakening, it's insane. Like, your body feels all energy around you. Like, no joke, when I went through my Kundalini awakening, I was feeling the rain, not sitting in the rain. I was feeling like the wind. I was feeling like everything. You put on a song, it was like my body, my blood was like flowing to it. The words, like, it's insane when you're going through Kundalini awakening. But even not going through one, you're vulnerable. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's new and you feel weird talking about it. And, you know, I was put in a place where I had mentors that I found out were saying I was making stuff up. I wasn't being truthful. And that hurt. But you know what? All I needed was my guides to show me that's what they can think. I'm on my own path. I'm also not starting this at 20 years old. I was 37 years old. Okay, so your mind's a lot different at 37 than it is in your 20s than it is when you're little. I understand people were born with this and they hone it at an earlier time. I think that there were a lot of opportunities in my life where they were like spirituality was trying to pull me in. I mean, ever since I could remember, I never truly believed in a religion. There was a lot of time where I listened to a Buddhist monk and that's what I resonated a lot with, but it still didn't seem completely right to me. And through what I believe now, I believe all religions have truth to them. It's just the word that they're saying and how it gets out to certain groups of people. Certain groups of people are going to resonate with this type of religion, with that type of religion, with this type of religion, with spirituality. I honestly believe there's truth to everything. And with the background in meditation from the PTSD training, and I listened to a monk for a really long time. His name was Ajahn Brahm, and it taught me all about, not judging and taking responsibility for your own actions, that you kind of cause everything in your life. And the sooner that you understand that and you can heal from that, the better you're going to feel. And that kind of ties in a lot with my spirituality path too. Everybody's path is going to look different, by the way. Everyone's going to look different. No one is going to look the same. I want to, kind of just put it out there and say, if you're starting a spirituality path and you feel called to do this, like for me, I feel like I almost had no choice, but at the same time, I wanted it, right? So like they literally like, Jackie, you're coming with us. Like, I swear with those rings, it was almost like pulling me in that way. Like, we're coming, be prepared, and then wild stuff starts to happen from there. And I'm going to do a live in a week on Tuesday of next week, and I can go into more detail about any of this and in upcoming episodes if anybody's curious about the little details that I've left out. We are going to get to parenting in the next episode though, so we're going to flip-flop back and forth. You'll see the spirituality in some of my parenting episodes too, but back to basics. So I want to tell all the newbies out there, this is a very interesting journey to be on. There are highs, there are lows. There are good people. There are people that don't know they're acting the way they are. If I have advice to anybody that's a beginner, and I still consider myself a beginner, right? I do not know everything, and you'll find that out through this. I'm learning as you're learning, as this person's learning. I believe that every good leader is always learning anyways. Like, you're always healing, you're always learning, you're always growing. The people that aren't doing work, I would be a little weary of. The people that seem harsh to you and you get that gut feeling, trust your gut. Trust your gut, because that is your intuition. Okay? If it feels weird, trust it. Trust it. And you're going to find out if you don't, you should have. I found that out pretty quick. So, actually not pretty quick. It took me months and months. And there are really good people out there, though. There are really good mentors. There are really, really beautiful people in this community. And they're willing to teach you. And even if you just watch, like, you can learn a lot. But you're not going to learn your spirituality in particular from anybody but yourself. So you can learn the basics. You can learn how to do shadow work. You can learn different meditation rituals. You can learn how to start working with your dreams. You can learn astrology. You can tie all this together, learn about all the ancient civilizations that maybe you were a part of in past lives. But you have to experience it. You make your own journey in this. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There are really no significant rules. There could be consequences. I'm not saying they're horrible consequences, but we all fall and get back up. That's just part of the journey. But ever since I started into my spirituality, I started journaling, I started understanding myself more, I started working with people, I started working with these beautiful souls in my life now. It has brought better people in my life. It has definitely, like, some things that I've manifested absolutely have come true. It's all about just learning how to do it in the right way and what's true to you. And notice I'm saying what's true to you a lot. What's your way? Because read all about it and then feel what's going to happen inside of you, because we're all different. And don't let anybody tell you that, you're going too fast or you're doing something wrong. You can figure that out on your own. And when you figure it out on your own, listen, when they tell you that, you're probably not going to listen anyways. That's just the ego coming in. You're going to be like, oh yeah, whatever. Or you'll be like, oh, and like totally shut down. Don't do either of those things, but it's going to eventually come around and get you anyways. And I don't say that to scare you. Like, it could be the weirdest thing that you're going to be like, shit, I definitely should have paid attention then. But that is how I started into my spirituality. At this point, I'm just, chilling. I give people advice here and there. I do energy reads. I can read energy pretty well, even without tapping into somebody's energy. I'm always the person that says, if I'm asking you, are you okay? It's because I already know what's going on. I don't pry. I can just feel the outward feeling. I feel like kind of, I guess you could say the aura, I say that in that way because I don't read auras or anything like that, but I guess you could say an aura. I feel the energy coming from the person. And if they let me in, then I can normally see more. And then sometimes loved ones pop up. So, yes. And the creepy part about it, and I say creepy because it still freaks me out, is it's very rare when I'm off. And it's just something that pops into my head. Everyone's like, how do you do that? It just comes. It's just like, it just appears. I don't know. It's just a feeling I get. And then I start to speak. And the words that come out are what comes out. And sometimes it resonates. Most of the time it resonates with people, which is the creepy part to me because I'm still getting used to this. I'm like, how am I doing this? But it's also, it can be so helpful and so healing to people. And it's just beautiful. It's such a beautiful feeling. It's such a beautiful feeling knowing that you're held, knowing that there's always something on your side, your guides, source, God, whatever you want to call it, the higher power that you believe in. It's amazing to know that emotions can be lessons. They don't have to make or break you. These things are there to teach us. We're in our human experience. We're learning. That's why we're here on earth, is to learn. And it's when you start to look at the bad things coming in as lessons and not just, oh, my life is horrible, this, that. How do I learn from this? How do I grow from this? How do I get better from this? Not necessarily how does it not happen again? Sometimes things are out of your control, right? But a lot of people, even that are religious, believe that God never puts too much in your hands. He never puts more in your hands than you can handle. And that's the same way with spirituality, is you're learning your lessons in your earth school and then you're taking them with you into your afterlife and kind of seeing where that takes you from there. And I can tell you from my experience and what I've felt from meditations and, feeling people's relatives, it seems like a pretty sweet place to be. And you get the choice. A lot of spiritual people, I believe, we chose to be here. We chose our parents. We mostly chose our parents. Sometimes there's other factors, but you're here for lessons. So with that, I'm going to end this and we can have this conversation this coming Tuesday. I'll be on Instagram Live, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of me and my spirituality and sending love to you all. I don't mean, with what I said as far as mentors kind of breaking me a little bit, I don't mean to shame anybody in saying that. It was a true lesson, and I'm very grateful for that because it taught me that not everybody are your people, and that's okay. Not everybody needs to be on your side, and that's okay. Not everybody's going to understand you, and that's okay. You're allowed to be an individual in the spiritual community. You're allowed to do things your own way, and it's the respect and the love you have inside of you that's going to attract the people that you need in your life and the moments that you need to happen in your life. So with that, thank you for listening, everybody. And if you, like I said, you have any questions, hit me up. Instagram, Facebook, email, review, wherever you feel the need. Thank you for listening to another episode of Rise and Shine with the Mama Jack, where we deep dive into the real, raw, truthful world of parenthood, mental health, wellness, and spirituality. Remember, my loves, it's okay to take a moment for yourself, to breathe, to laugh, and embrace the beautiful messiness of life. Let's keep rising out of our shadows, shining our light, nurturing our souls, and spread love like confetti. Until next time, stay shamelessly authentic. Love, the Mama Jack. For more info and socials, go to shamelesslyauthenticproductions.com.